She thought he was just a poor, crippled beggar. She fed him every day with her little food. But one morning, everything changed. Who was this man? Why did he choose her? And what secret had he been hiding all along? Sit back and find out as we dive into this shocking and heart-touching story. This is the story of a poor girl named Adora and a crippled beggar everyone laughed at. Adora was a young woman, just 24 years old. She sold food in a small wooden shop by the roadside in Lagos. Her stall was made of old planks and iron sheets. It stood under a big tree where many people came to eat. Adora didn't have much. Her slippers were worn out and her dress had patches, but she was always smiling. Even when she was tired, she greeted people kindly. "Good afternoon, sir." "You're welcome," she would say to every customer. She woke up very early each morning to cook rice, beans, and yam porridge. Her hands worked fast, but her heart was slow with sadness. Adora had no family. Her parents died when she was young. She lived in a small room not far from her shop. No light, no portable water, just her and her dreams. One afternoon, as Adora wiped her bench, her friend Mama Loveth walked by. "Adora," Mama Loveth said, "why are you always smiling when you are struggling just like every one of us?" Adora smiled again and replied, "Because crying will not bring food to my pot." Mama Loveth laughed and walked away, but her words stayed in Adora's heart. It was true. She had nothing. But she still gave people something to eat even when they couldn't pay. She didn't know her life was about to change. Every afternoon, something strange happened at Adora's shop. A crippled beggar would appear from the corner of the road. He always came slowly, pushing his old wheelchair with his hands. The wheels made a rough sound on the stones. Creak, creak, creak. People passing by would laugh or cover their noses. "Look at this dirty man again," one boy said. The man's legs were wrapped in bandages. His knickers were torn at the knees. His face was dark with dust. His eyes were tired. Some people said he smelled. Others said he was mad, but Adora never looked away. She called him Papa John. That afternoon, as the sun burned hot above, Papa John pushed his wheelchair and stopped beside her shop. Adora looked at him and said softly, "You're here again, Papa John. You didn't eat yesterday." Papa John looked down. His voice was low. "I was too weak to come," he said. "I have not eaten in 2 days." Adora looked at her table. Only one plate of beans and yam was left. That was the food she wanted to eat herself. She paused for a second. Then, without a word, she picked up the plate and placed it in front of him. "Here, eat," she said. Papa John looked at the food, then at her. "You're giving me your last plate again?" Adora nodded. "I can cook again when I get home." His hands shook as he took the spoon. His eyes looked wet, but he didn't cry. He just bent his head and started to eat slowly. People walking by stared at them. "Adora's, why do you always feed that beggar?" a woman asked. Adora smiled and replied, "If I was the one sitting there in a wheelchair, wouldn't I want someone to help me, too?" Papa John came every day, but he never begged with his mouth. He didn't call out to people. He didn't stretch out his hands. He didn't ask for food or money. He would always sit quietly in his wheelchair beside Adora's wooden shop. His head is always face down. His hands rested on his legs. His wheelchair looked like it would break any time. One of the wheels even leaned sideways while others ignored him. Adora always brought him a plate of hot food. Sometimes it was rice. Sometimes it was beans and yam. She gave it with a big smile. It was a hot afternoon. Adora had just finished serving jollof rice to 2 schoolboys when she looked up and saw Papa John again, sitting quietly in his usual spot. His legs were still wrapped in old bandage. His shirt had more holes now, but he just sat there like always, saying nothing. Adora smiled and scooped hot jollof rice into a plate. She added 2 small pieces of meat and walked over to him. "Papa John," she said gently, "your food is ready." Papa John looked up slowly. His eyes were tired. But when he saw Adora, they softened. "You always remember me," he said. Adora knelt and placed the food gently on the stool beside him. "Even if the whole world forgets you," she said, "I won't." Just then, a big black car drove up and stopped right in front of her. Door opened slowly and a man stepped out. He was wearing a clean white shirt and dark trousers. His shoes looked shiny like someone had just polished them. He was tall and strong with deep eyes. Adora stood up quickly and wiped her hands on her apron. "Good afternoon, sir," she said. "Good afternoon," the man replied. But his eyes were not on her. He was looking at Papa John. The man didn't blink. He just stared at him for a long time. Papa John kept eating. But Adora noticed something strange. He had stopped chewing. The man took a step closer and tilted his head like he was trying to remember something. He turned to her and said, "Please give me 1 plate of jollof rice. Add meat." Adora quickly served the food and handed it to him. But as he took the food, he looked back at Papa John one more time. This time, his eyes looked unsure. He opened the car door, entered without a word, and drove off. The next morning, Adora woke up early. She swept in front of her food shop and cleaned her wooden table like always. As the sun rose, she kept looking down the road. "Any moment now," she whispered. "Papa John will roll in." But hours passed. No wheelchair, no Papa John. By noon, her heart began to beat fast. She walked to the side of the shop and looked down both ends of the street. "Where is he?" she asked herself. She asked Mama Loveth, the woman selling vegetables nearby. "Auntie, did you see Papa John today?" Mama Loveth laughed and waved her hand. "That old man? Maybe he crawled to another street. He doesn't have legs." Adora didn't laugh. She asked 2 boys selling satch water, "Have you seen the old man in a wheelchair?" They shook their heads. She even asked the bike man who parked nearby, "Sir, did you see Papa John this morning?" The man spat on the ground and said, "Maybe he's tired of sitting in one place. Or maybe he's gone." Adora's chest became heavy. She sat beside her pot of rice and stared at the empty spot where Papa John always sat. Her eyes didn't leave that space. All day, 2 more days passed. Still, no sign of Papa John. Adora couldn't smile like before. She served customers, but her face looked sad. She couldn't eat much. Even the smell of her sweet jollof rice made her feel sick. Her thoughts kept running to Papa John. "Did something bad happen to him?" she said quietly. At night, she sat alone in her small room behind the shop. She held the last plate she served him with and looked at it. "Papa John never misses a day," she said softly. "Even when it rains. Even when he's sick. So why now?" She stood up, opened her small window, and looked out into the dark street. A cold breeze entered the room, her eyes filled with water. She wasn't just worried. She was scared. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. And deep inside her, she knew Papa John was not just missing. Something had happened. Something big and maybe dangerous. It was the 4th day. Adora was sitting quietly in her shop. She was slicing onions and setting her table like she did every morning. Smoke rose from the fire as she boiled water for the rice. Just then, a black car stopped in front of her shop. A tall man came down. He was wearing a bright red cap. His shoes were shiny and his clothes looked expensive. Adora had never seen him before. He didn't smile. He didn't greet her. He just walked up to her table and handed her a brown envelope. Adora looked at it confused. What is this?" she asked, holding the envelope with 2 hands. The man didn't answer. He just said, "Read it and don't tell anyone." Then he turned and walked back into the car. Before Adora could say another word, the car drove away. She looked left. She looked right. Nobody else was watching. With shaking hands, she opened the envelope. Inside was 1 white paper. She opened the paper slowly. There were only a few words on it. "Come to Green Hill Hotel by 4:00 p.m. Don't tell anyone." From a friend. Adora stood still. Her mouth opened a little, but no words came out. Her hands began to shake. "Green Hill Hotel," she said softly. "But I've never been to a hotel before." She looked at the paper again. Her heart was beating fast. Who sent this? What kind of friend? She looked down the road. The car was gone. She looked at the paper again. Adora held the envelope to her chest. She looked at the sky. It was cloudy. But she knew one thing for sure. She had to go. At exactly 3:30 p.m., Adora stood in front of her small shop. She looked at the lock in her hand, took a deep breath, and closed the wooden door. She turned the key twice. "God, please go with me," she whispered. She walked to the road and stopped a tricycle. "Green Hill Hotel," she told the driver. As they drove through the busy Lego street, Adora held the brown envelope tightly in her hand. Her heart was beating fast. She didn't know who sent the letter. She didn't know what would happen, but something inside her told her this was not an ordinary day. After some minutes, they reached the hotel gate. Adora looked up. The building was very tall with windows that looked like glass. The walls were clean. The front door was big and shiny. Everything around her felt like a dream. 2 security men stood by them wore dark glasses. He looked at Adora and stepped forward. "Good afternoon, madam," he said. "Who are you here to see?" Adora opened her mouth slowly. I got this letter," she said, showing him the paper. "It says I should come here. My name is Adora." The guard took the paper, looked at it, then smiled. "Oh, Adora. Someone is waiting for you inside," he said. "You can go in." Right away, a man in a black suit came out from the glass door. He walked to Adora. He didn't say much. "Come with me, please," he said, and began walking back inside. Adora followed him. Her legs felt weak, but she kept moving. The man in black led her through a long hall. Then he stopped at a tall brown door. He turned to her and said, "Someone is waiting inside." Adora's heart beat louder. She looked at the door. Then she looked at the man. "Can I go in now?" she asked. The man nodded. "Yes, just go in. You're safe." Adora took one deep breath. Then she pushed the door open. Her eyes went straight to the man sitting in a wheelchair in the middle of the room. She froze. Her mouth opened. Her hands began to shake. "Papa John," she said, holding her chest. But this man didn't look like the poor man who used to sit beside her shop. His hair was neat. His face was fresh. He wore a black suit with gold buttons. A shiny wristwatch was on his wrist. He was still sitting in a wheelchair, but it looked different, clean, and polished. He didn't look weak or tired. He looked calm and powerful. He gave her a slow smile. "Adora's," he said softly. "Come in." Adora couldn't move at first. Her heart was beating fast. She looked at him again. "Papa John, is this really you?" she asked. The man looked into her eyes. "Yes, Adora. It's me." He pointed to the chair across from him. "Please sit," he said kindly. Adora slowly sat down, still looking at him like she was dreaming. "My name is not Papa John," he said gently. Adora blinked. "It's not." He nodded. "My real name is Chief Kenneth. I am a billionaire." Adora put both hands on her lap. She stared at him, shocked. "A billionaire?" she asked in a low voice. Chief Kenneth nodded. "Yes, I own many companies. I have built houses, schools, and hospitals. I've made a lot of money over the years." Adora looked confused. "But why did you pretend to be poor?" He smiled again, but this time his eyes looked serious. "I wanted to see the real heart of people. I got tired of people helping only when they think someone is watching. I wanted to meet someone who helps just because it's the right thing to do." Adora's eyes became wet. "You gave me food," he continued. "You gave it with joy. You never asked me for anything. You didn't laugh at me or walk away." He looked at her kindly. "That is why you are here. Every year I choose 10 people who show true kindness. I help them become millionaires. Because people like you can help others, too." Adora was still in shock, thinking about all that Chief Kenneth had told her. Chief Kenneth gave a small smile. Then slowly he placed both hands on the arms of the wheelchair. Adora leaned forward watching him. And then he stood up. Her eyes opened wide. Her mouth fell open. You can walk?" she asked in shock. Chief Kenneth nodded. "Yes," he said softly. "I can walk." Adora leaned back, still looking at him like she had seen a ghost. "But why sit in a wheelchair all this time?" she asked. He looked into her eyes and replied, "I wanted to see if anyone would still care for me. Even when I looked broken, I wanted to know who had a good heart." Adora's lips began to shake. Her eyes became wet. A tear dropped. She said in a low voice, "I didn't help you because I wanted anything. I didn't know you were rich. I just felt it was the right thing to do." Chief Kenneth smiled again and walked closer. "That's exactly why I chose you," he said. Chief Kenneth stood quietly for a moment, looking at Adora with kind eyes. Then he said, "Adora, follow me. There is a place I want to show you." She looked surprised. "A place?" "Yes," he said with a smile. "I want to show you something. It's part of your reward. You have a good heart, and people like you deserve good things." Adora stood up slowly. "Okay," she said, her voice calm, but unsure. Chief Kenneth turned and opened the door. Adora followed him. The hallway was quiet. 2 men in black suits were already waiting outside the door. They nodded at Chief Kenneth and walked behind them. Adora looked around. Everything still felt like a dream. When they stepped outside, Her mouth opened wide. 5 big black SUVs were lined up in the car park. They looked shiny like mirrors. Big men in black suits stood beside each one. Chief Kenneth walked straight to the first car. One of the men opened the door for him. Adora stood still, shocked. Chief Kenneth looked back and smiled. "Come in, Adora." She took a deep breath and slowly entered the car. As soon as the door closed, the other cars followed behind. The convoy of 5 SUVs moved out of the hotel gate like something out of a movie. Adora sat quietly, her heart beating fast. Where was he taking her? And what was he about to show her? The cars moved slowly beside Chief Kenneth, looking out the window. She saw busy people walking, shops open, buses moving, but her mind was full of questions. Where were they going? After about 30 minutes, the cars turned into a clean, quiet road. The buildings here looked new and fine. Glass walls, shining signboards, fresh paint everywhere. Then the cars stopped. Chief Kenneth opened the door and stepped out. A guard quickly opened Adora's door, too. "Come," Chief Kenneth said, smiling. Then her eyes stopped. Right in front of her was a very big and beautiful building. It was not just a shop. It was a multi-millionaire luxury restaurant, the kind of place where only rich people come to eat. It stood alone, wide and tall, with glass windows that stretched from top to bottom. The walls were white and smooth like marble. The doors had shiny gold handles. There were flowers at the entrance. Adora's mouth opened. She had never seen anything like this in her life. But what shocked her the most was the signboard. It said, "Adora's Place, home of sweet meals." Adora took a step back. She looked at the sign again to be sure her eyes were not playing tricks. Is this real?" she asked in a low voice. Chief Kenneth nodded gently. "Yes, it's yours?" "Mine," she whispered. He reached to his pocket and pulled a bunch of keys, stretched it towards Adora, and pointed at the door. "Go inside." Adora collected the keys and walked slowly to the door. Her hands were shaking. She opened it. What she saw inside made her cover her mouth. The floor was shining. The chairs were big and soft. The tables looked like they were made from glass and gold. There were lights on the ceiling that looked like stars. The air smelled fresh. Everything was new and perfect. There was a big kitchen at the back. Inside, she saw gas cookers, clean pots, deep freezers, fridges, and even uniforms for workers. She turned slowly to look at Chief Kenneth. Her eyes were full of tears. "You bought all this for me." Chief Kenneth walked in and stood beside her. "Yes," he said softly. "You fed me with your small money when you had nothing. Now I want to give you a place where kings and queens will come to eat. You will never suffer again." Adora dropped to her knees. Her hands covered her face. She was crying, but they were happy tears. "I don't know what to say," she said. "You don't need to say anything," Chief Kenneth replied. "Your kindness already spoke for you." From that day, Adora became the boss of a big food plaza in Legos. It was not like her small roadside shop anymore. This place was grand. The floors were shiny. The walls had fine lights. The chairs were soft and clean. Played softly in the background. People felt peace once they stepped in. She didn't cook anymore. She didn't serve food. Professional cooks handled the kitchen. They wore white coats and hats. Waiters wore fine uniforms and smiled as they served food. Adora just sat in her office upstairs. Her name was on the door. Her picture was on the wall. Everyone respected her. But even with all the money, comfort, and fame, she never forgot where she came from. She never forgot Papa John. And she never forgot how kindness changed her life. One morning, her manager walked into her office. "Madam," he said, "the food truck is ready." Adora stood up. "Let's go," she said. Outside the restaurant, a big white van was waiting. On the side of the van was a name, Adora's Food Love, feeding the hungry. Adora had started a charity. Every week, her food trucks went around the city. They gave free food to poor people under the bridges, near bus stops, around markets. People lined up with smiles. Some had no shoes. Some were children. Some were old men. Adora walked to each one and handed them warm food. She said, "Eat well. You are not forgotten." One of her workers whispered, "Madam, why do you do this?" Adora looked up slowly. She touched her chest softly. "Kindness brought me here, so I must send kindness out again." The worker nodded quietly. And as they all watched the people eat and smile, the sun shone gently on Adora's face. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you, Chief Kenneth. Thank you for seeing me. Then she turned, walked back to the van, and drove off to feed the next street. Her life had changed forever, but her heart stayed the same. This story teaches us one powerful lesson. Kindness is never wasted. You may not have much, but when you give from a pure heart, your reward will find you when you least expect it. What did this story teach you? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. I would really love to read from you. And guess what? So, make sure you subscribe to my channel and turn on your notification bell so